Do you ever wake up already tired? Not the kind where 5 more minutes would make it better, but a heaviness that shows up almost immediately? Within 10 or 20 seconds of opening your eyes, your body already feels slow, as if it needs a extra time just to exist. Even after sleeping 7, 8, maybe 9 hours, the morning still begins with a sense of being out of sync, like you've left sleep behind, but something essential hasn't caught up with you yet. I lived in that state for a long time, probably years, with hundreds of mornings that felt nearly identical. I tried to explain it in all the familiar ways: work stress, pressure, modern life. Sometimes people told me to sleep earlier. Sometimes they suggested trying this or that. And sometimes it was brushed off so lightly that it sounded like a quiet reminder that maybe I just wasn't disciplined enough. Eventually, I stopped bringing it up at all. But there was something I always knew beneath the surface. This wasn't about laziness or a lack of effort. It felt like a quiet disconnection between me and my own rhythm, between how I was living and how my body was responding. It took me a long time to understand this. Your morning doesn't really begin when you open your eyes. It's been shaped long before that. And the way you move through the other 23 hours determines how that first hour feels. Once that became clear, my direction changed. I stopped looking for quick fixes and stopped trying to repair my mornings as if they were a small defect. I began looking at my overall rhythm instead, piece by piece, at the most basic level, at things I had never considered important before. This isn't a promise of fast change, because you're not a machine that needs adjustment. You don't need to be fixed. What you need, what I needed, is reconnection to time, to light, to the brief pockets of stillness in a day, to natural movement. These things may sound almost too simple, but what they do beneath the surface runs far deeper than they appear. And at some point, you may realize this. It's not that you failed to rest, it's that you've been living out of rhythm for a long time without realizing it. Habit 1, let the morning find you first. My mornings used to begin in a very familiar way. I'd open my eyes and before thinking much at all, my hand would reach for my phone. Not because anything was urgent, and not out of real curiosity either. Just a few notifications, a few lines of text, a habit repeated every day. Everything felt quiet enough, yet inside there was a sense of heaviness and slowness, as if I had already stepped into the day before I was truly ready. At one point, I tried doing something slightly different, nothing drastic. I simply left my phone aside for the first few minutes after waking up. I stood near a window, or stepped outside, letting the morning light reach my eyes, letting the cool air touch my skin. I didn't do anything else. What I noticed was that wakefulness arrived more slowly, but with more clarity. The mental fog softened and my internal pace eased, as if my body were finding its way back to a familiar rhythm. Later, I began to understand why this happened. Scientists who study circadian rhythms explain that the brain doesn't actually tell time by clocks. It relies on light to know when to wake and when to rest. Natural morning light sends a direct signal to the part of the brain that regulates the sleep-wake cycle, allowing the nervous system to come online safely. When that signal arrives at the right time, hormones, alertness, and energy adjust on their own. By contrast, light from screens, especially blue light, can distort that signal, pushing the brain into an unnecessarily tense state at the very start of the day. I don't see this as a rule, or something that has to be done every morning. It's simply a small experiment, a way to listen to the body more closely. If one morning you feel curious, you might try letting light come before the screen. No need to change anything else, just notice how your body responds. Sometimes all it takes is the right signal for the body to move with you at a gentler pace. Habit 2. Eating with the sun, not the clock. There was a period when my dinners happened fairly late. 9:30 or 10 at night felt normal. I'd finish work, cook a heavy meal, eat in front of a screen, maybe add something sweet for comfort, then head to bed close to midnight, with the feeling that I'd earned my rest. But the next morning, I often woke up feeling heavy and foggy, as if I hadn't truly rested, only shut down for the night. I blamed stress, screen time, even my mattress. Much later, I finally looked at something I had never really questioned before: the timing of dinner. I started eating a few hours earlier, even though it felt inconvenient at first and out of sync with people around me. Dinner became lighter, with less sugar and fewer stimulants. What surprised me was how naturally sleepiness arrived. Not the kind where you crash from exhaustion, but a gentle, steady drowsiness, as if my body were slowing itself down without force. That's when I understood why the change felt so clear. When you eat, especially large or late meals, the body stays busy. Core temperature rises, insulin becomes active, and heart rate remains slightly elevated. All of these signal that the system is still on. But deep, restorative sleep requires the opposite: a cooler body, stable blood sugar, and no digestive workload. Research in chrononutrition, the study of how meal timing affects biology, shows that eating close to bedtime reduces deep sleep, the phase essential for repair, hormone balance, and memory. For me, the most important part wasn't the data. It was how I felt afterward. I didn't wake up bloated or overly hungry. I felt lighter. My dreams felt clearer. Morning energy didn't need to be forced into place. It simply showed up. I know life doesn't always allow for early dinners, but if it's possible, you might try moving one evening meal a little earlier this week. Not as a rule, but as an invitation. Sometimes going to bed when the body truly has nothing left to process is the simplest way to wake up feeling lighter the next morning. Habit 3. Transitioning into night. For a while, my evenings passed very quickly, even though on the surface it looked like I was resting. The lights stayed on, the screen stayed open, and my mind never fully settled. I'd scroll a little longer, watch one more clip, finish responding to a few things, telling myself I was unwinding. But once I lay down, my body was tired while my mind kept running, as if the day hadn't actually ended. Then I tried slowing the evening down, not by forcing myself to go to bed early, but by gradually easing the pace beforehand. After a certain hour, I softened the lights, turned off more screens, and let everything become quieter and simpler. I stopped trying to fill the space with new content. At first, it felt strange, slightly empty. But over time, I noticed my body beginning to slow on its own. My shoulders relaxed, my breathing deepened, and sleepiness arrived more gently than before. Later, I came to understand why this mattered. Sleep isn't something you can switch on instantly. The body needs a transition. Research on the nervous system shows that when bright light and stimulation decrease, melatonin begins to rise, heart rate slows, and the body shifts into a restorative state. In other words, the evening needs time to settle, so the brain knows the day is coming to a close. Without that transition, the body is pushed straight from activity into rest, and deep sleep becomes harder to reach. I don't see this as a fixed formula. It's simply an invitation to slow down before the night carries you away. If your evenings feel rushed or overloaded, you might try reducing a bit of light, a bit of content, a bit of noise. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just notice how your body responds when it's given time to prepare for rest. Sometimes sleeping better isn't about sleeping longer, but about allowing the body enough space to truly slow down. Habit 4, moving before the world pulls you in. There are mornings when I wake up already tense, even before leaving the bed. The moment my eyes open, my thoughts start racing, my hand reaches for my phone, and I feel behind everything. Behind messages, behind time, behind life itself. The day hasn't begun yet, but I already feel like I'm chasing it. So I tried changing one small thing, not intense exercise, and not a complicated habit. Just early movement, gentle and intentional. Within the first 30 minutes after waking, I do something to return to my body. Some days it's stretching while the kettle boils. Some days it's a short walk outside with no destination, just breathing. Other days it's playing a song and letting my body move slowly in silence. And I noticed I was waking up in a different way, without rush, without being pulled forward. Later, I understood why early movement makes such a difference. When the body moves, the brain receives a clear signal that we're awake and present. I don't always feel like doing this. Some mornings the bed is too warm, the world outside feels too heavy. But I still try to step out of bed. Not out of obligation, but because I know what waits on the other side of that first movement. A bit more clarity, a bit more lightness, and the feeling that I get to choose how I begin. If you're curious, you might try gentle movement before the world starts pulling you in. It doesn't have to be much, just enough to tell your body, I'm here, and the day can begin at my pace. In the end, I realized I was never broken or lacking discipline. I had simply been out of rhythm for a long time without noticing. Light, food, evenings, morning movement. Each small shift didn't fix me. It brought me back into alignment with my body. And once that rhythm returned, everything felt lighter. Not because I was doing more, but because I stopped pushing against myself. If you've been waking up tired, it may not be about motivation at all. It might just be your body asking to be listened to. If any of this sparked your curiosity, you might try one small change. Not perfectly, just enough to notice how your body responds. And if this video helped you feel even a little more at ease, consider giving it a like or subscribing. Not to follow me, but to keep following yourself, more gently and more in rhythm.